has been an awakening. Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. Today, we are full on just talking about Star Wars. As promised, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, which I remember when they first even announced it, it blew our little collective minds. We were never expecting that we were going to get a sequel sequel trilogy, and that the original beloved cast was going to come back. I mean, I remember that was like the origin story of the Triad, because it kind of began as we were speculating about what we were going to get in this film. So, Goose, finally we get to do a rewatch episode of The Force Awakens. How are you feeling about this?
We're here. Like it's mixed emotions about it, really, right? Because you always want to celebrate a film that you love, but it's also that whole thing of reckoning with time, and time wasn't that much of a big deal, I think, 10 years ago, but 10 years removed, all of a sudden it's like 10 years are a big deal. And if I could recover those 10 years, I would grab them in a heartbeat. So it's kind of one of these things where you're celebrating a milestone, but also recognizing that, we're getting farther and farther away now from all these things. Because we were just talking before we started recording how one of our first celebrations was when A New Hope was celebrating its 40th anniversary. And now here we are getting close to 2027, and the 50th is here. So now it's insane to think about that. A series of films with the sequel trilogy that we thought was maybe never going to happen, at least as long as George was alive or in control of Lucasfilm, were going to happen. Now we're 10 years away from it actually happening. So it's fun. It's fun now to look back and see how much, not just the world, I don't know how much Star Wars has changed, but also how the world has changed, because we live in a wildly different world now in 2025 than we did back in 2015 when we were young and full of hope. But, let's go. I mean, it's funny. It's funny because I want to hear your thoughts about this, because in a lot of ways, 2015 and that time frame, I felt like I had fallen off the wagon, so to speak, on kind of like keeping up with Star Wars or really care or actively caring about Star Wars. I mean, it's not as if I didn't like Star Wars, but there was like a detachment period.
Because there was so much no Star Wars for a while.
There was no Star Wars for a while. Revenge of the Sith was over. Obviously publishing was still happening. We had a lot of games, but in terms of like the atmosphere, like it seemed that a sequel trilogy was almost as hopeless as Guns N' Roses getting back together, having Axl Rose and Slash forgive each other and just reunite. Like that's where we were, right? There were like these unattainable things back in the 2010s that we thought were never going to happen, and all of a sudden it kind of did. And this George sold it to Disney, and the sequel trilogy was announced, and all of a sudden we started talking about it at your house. So like, what was like your journey, right? Like before, like post Revenge of the Sith and pre Force Awakens, like what was that for you in terms of Star Wars fandom?
I mean, it was so strange because to begin with, I mean, I never thought I was going to see the original trilogy in the theaters, and then they did the re-releases, and then they announced, when I was like starting college, I think, that they were doing the prequels, which was super exciting. And I still have, my relationship, for better or worse, with the prequels. I've come to appreciate them a lot during the year. There was a lot that I did enjoy when I watched them the first time. And I've said in the podcast, for people that have been following us, that I actually watched the last one right after my college graduation. So it was like a huge deal for me. And then it was just kind of over. Like we never thought we were going to get a sequel trilogy. I was never like a huge follower of the publishings. So, I mean, sorry, wasn't. I didn't actually watch the Clone Wars, till we actually started doing the podcast. So I wasn't keeping up with the animated stuff. And for me, it just felt like Star Wars was done. That, what was there was always going to be there. I would always enjoy it. Me and my brother our like Christmas tradition was always to watch like the original trilogy, which we did have on VHS, but I think it was the think it was the original release that
No,
we
you
had.
probably
I'm
had
pretty
the
sure
special editions at that point.
we had the special editions, which were on VHS, and I remember the first time that we got to the change in Return, where they bait switched Anakin,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hayden Christensen with the original actor, and we were like, did we just Christmas hallucinate this? Is this rewind, please? What just happened? So yeah, so it felt like we weren't really gonna get that much more, and you know, it's really upsetting because it's one of those things we've always loved. And then they suddenly announced that this is happening, that there's going to be a sequel trilogy. And as the more that we get information, that the fact that we're getting a lot of the original actors back. And then that first time we saw the trailer, I remember all of us freaking out, having like literally saying we need to all hang out, have a couple drinks, and discuss this trailer and what we expect to see. And we were continuously talking about what we were going to expect to see and what every single scene meant every time that something came out, all the way leading up to the release of The Force Awakens. So I think it was just kind of a huge thing for all of us to, you know, just it brought us together, like our group of friends, in a way that it hadn't thus far. And I got to meet Mo through it, who I hadn't really met before, when we went to that first Star Wars celebration. And that was, you know, it in a very special way, it was like the origin of the triad, which was great. But aside from that, it was just like a reawakening of Star Wars in general. And,
so to speak,
you know,
pun
have your
intended,
issues.
probably.
And have your issues with the sequel trilogy, all that you want. And you know that a lot of them are controversial. But it was a new trilogy. It was cinematic Star Wars coming back. So love it or hate it, we're still talking about them, and we will continue to talk about them. And it reawakened, I think, interest, again, pun intended, fully, interest in Star Wars again. And I think through that, we've gotten so much more, because that's after the sequels, and during the sequels, it's that we started getting, you know, Mando and all the other shows and Ahsoka, and the final season of Clone Wars happened afterwards because it had already been canceled. So it just sparked so much interest and so much good things. So love it or hate it, historically, I think it's a win. So what about you?
I mean, I don't disagree. I remember in the I mean, I can only imagine how it must have felt, right, for all the people that saw the original trilogy, and then when the prequel trilogy was announced, and like their excitement for it, they had been waiting for that prequel trilogy longer than we had to wait for the sequel trilogy. So true. I mean, they lived in a that generation lived in a different era of the early days of the internet. So like the whole you know, spoiler culture and trailer discussions and all those things.
Yeah, it didn't really exist.
Yeah, it was probably completely different from how we experienced the lead up to The Force Awakens, where we had like hundreds of people just doing trailer reactions and trailer breakdowns, and it's just like in the zeitgeist in a saturated way for everything. So like it was a really exciting time, and I just remember not during the lead up, but I remember when I was in high school and the prequels were in full swing. I don't know if you ever went to this website, Super Shadow, I think it was .com or .org. I don't remember which one. Super Shadow, and it was this guy. It's like early days of the internet, or I mean, as the internet is like becoming bigger. It was like this guy that used to claim that he was a friend of George Lucas or an ex-Lucasfilm employee, something like that. Now in hindsight, it's like that was obviously full of shit. I mean, this person's obviously lying. But back then, you know, you don't know what's, you know, it's the internet. It's like, oh my God, this sounds plausible. And it was just this guy that would always do that on his website, always had like the alleged sequel trilogy plot synopses or story treatments that George Lucas had told them that the story was going to be about. And it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I mean, everything's completely out of this world. I don't even remember what the plot lines were, but they were, you know, they were basically like, you know, fanboy fantasy, uber exaggerated fan fiction of what the sequel trilogy should have been. But it's just funny, right, to think of like those times during that prequel era, already thinking about what the sequel trilogy could be, and already from then forming notions of what sequel
Yeah.
trilogy should be, right? Which I think is the big Achilles heel in fandom, and especially Star Wars fandom, is like creating your own story instead of accepting the
Yeah.
story as it's given to you. And and then the lead up to that, like you were saying, just the kind of community that's just created around the
Yeah.
movie and around Star Wars, and enthusiasm and happiness and joy and expectation, right? I remember
Yeah.
those nights at your place, just like dissecting that
Every
teaser
little
trailer,
detail. Mhm.
which was an incredible teaser trailer. I still think it's
It
one of the
was.
best
Mhm.
trailers of all time. I mean, the hype it generated was out of this world, pun intended. But you know, we had a lot of theories. Lots of them didn't come true, for the better, probably.
Yeah.
But some of them kind of did. You know, I
Did. Yeah.
remember. I remember. And with this, I think we should just like seg in straight into the
The actual
movie.
film. Mhm.
But I remember we had like this discussion where like I had this big expectation slash theory of like this one thing that I wanted to happen in the movie, and it's that they're gonna be in a forest and it's gonna be dark
Yep.
and they're gonna be fighting, and it's gonna be, I don't remember if I thought it was gonna be raining or snowing, but one of the two. There's gonna be particles coming down, and all of a sudden, you know, in the background, like a green lightsaber just ignites, and
Yeah.
it's the reveal of Luke Skywalker showing
Yeah.
up for the final showdown in the movie. And you know,
Yep.
we were damn close. The
We got
payoff
close. We got close. We got close.
the payoff wasn't that, but you know, we got a forest in the dark with a lightsaber battle with
In the
particles
snow.
coming down. So
And it wasn't the green lightsaber, but was the original blue lightsaber.
technically, Luke's lightsaber was in it, not the green one,
What?
but you know, but we got a lightsaber used by Luke Skywalker. So
Yeah.
with that, The Force Awakens, 10 years,
Force Awakens.
10 years
10
removed.
years.
The fanfare starts, the crawl begins, The Force Awakens, and that first sentence, Luke Skywalker has vanished, which I
Has
think is one of the
vanished.
best openings
Oh yeah.
for a Star Wars film. So
Yep.
you just rewatched it. What was your reaction to seeing it again? Did it hold up? Does it not hold up? Like, you know, what's your feeling about The Force Awakens now, 10 years
Okay, so just
removed?
broad strokes. I forgot how great that crawl was.
Mhm.
That is one of the best crawls. It just like drags you in from the beginning.
Mhm. Yep.
I felt a lot of the excitement that I felt the first time I've watched it. I mean, I've watched it a bunch of times since then, but it has been a long time since I've done a rewatch. So I feel like there's a lot of details I missed out on before, because sometimes you kind of focus on the things that you really enjoyed and don't realize a lot of things. There were a lot of really beautiful Chewie moments that I don't think I had noticed in the other times that I've watched it. So we can get into that. Visually, it holds up completely. It's still gorgeous. It's still fun. It keeps you entertained the whole time. The soundtrack is fantastic. You know, the nostalgia that you get from all these old characters coming in and kind of like inserting themselves into the world of these new characters. It's hard now to watch it without knowing what happens with the rest of the trilogy, for good or bad, because I think, you know, Last Jedi is very controversial, but we are a fan of it, even if a lot of them aren't. And then Rise was just not good. And there is a problem of discontinuity in the trilogy. But there's a problem of discontinuity with that sequel trilogy. So it's hard to kind of watch The Force Awakens as its own thing. You kind of have to, because of the nature of the beast, think about the originals and the prequels and everything and how this one fits in. And I know a lot of us felt it the first time, and it still feels the same, that it is kind of a remake of A New Hope in a lot of ways. But I felt at the time that it was a palate cleanser that we kind of needed after a lot of hate for the prequels. So I don't know. It still holds up, I feel like, its own film anyway. And there's a lot of great new elements that are brought in. I mean, there's characters that were really fantastic that we kind of, they lost their way in the rest of the sequel trilogy, which makes me really sad to see how good it was when it first started. But then I I am a total Reylo. So to watch the origins of, Rey and Kylo,
Mm-hmm.
who becomes Ben Solo, Adam Driver is a fantastic actor. And you can sense, the chemistry early on, even from this first film. And I think, again, it's a really lost opportunity between Finn and Poe, because there's definite chemistry between both of them too. So you kind of see like where opportunities were taken advantage of and where they weren't, as you kind of rewatch it and think of what comes next. But all in all, I think it's actually a good addition to the Star Wars saga. So I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't disagree. I remember because The Force Awakens came out obviously 2015, 10 years ago, and it was during that's when I moved to Chicago. And because I moved to Chicago in September. I moved to Chicago in September. So I'm still, I'm still adapting. That was not my first winter, I guess my third winter, because I did grad school in Champaign. So those were my first 2 winters. So this is my third winter. I'm still acclimating to the city. You're new in a place, and I kind of knew friends from grad school, but I didn't really have like a lot of close friends. I just started a new job, so it takes a minute to kind of make friends at a new place. So I didn't really have like you guys or like a close squad of people to enjoy that film on the big screen. So I remember that was not a negative, but something that hindered my experience of enjoying it, because I wasn't in a space watching it with the people that I wanted to watch it with, and like
especially because we were speculating about it all the way up to the build up, and then you But, you weren't with us when we actually saw it.
But but that being said, it was I thought it was incredible. I mean, it's the first it hits different, right? Seeing the Star Wars scroll in the big screen, and it hits even deeper when it's a new scroll that you haven't read before. Because I've done all the re-releases. I always go to the movie theater to see when all the Star Wars films are re-released, and it's always exciting to watch that on the big screen. But there's something there's something special about
reading it for the first time.
New words, what's happening here. Like, I actually have to pay attention now and read it, and
it's
like
such a good one.
And it's such a good one. And I remember just being kind of hooked into it immediately. And I think that the whole structuring of the film to honor that nostalgia from the original trilogy worked in spades, because that's it was kind of a palate cleanser from the prequels, for better or worse. I mean, I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good thing, but it was a palate cleanser from that, in terms of like how that universe was built. And I think that there are lessons learned from that, and we can kind of talk about that a little later, where I think that it was interesting that then the first line of the movie is, "This will begin to set things right," which a lot of fans took that as a tongue-in-cheek reference to the prequels, being like, okay,
we're fixing them.
We're fixing this by giving you this film, which now in hindsight is kind of like, did you really do it?
Did you really?
Now with the Rise of Skywalker being like, at least George, 1 through 3, you can say whatever you want about them, but at least they're kind of a cohesive, unified vision and story, where this is,
and this one just like disjointed and didn't know what it was trying to do.
There's some things that we can dissect without being too negative, but honestly I think a lot in rewatching the movie, it definitely does feel that a lot of the eventual sicknesses of the sequel trilogy, for lack of a better word, were symptoms from The Force Awakens. A lot of the things that The Force Awakens establishes are problems that just like roll over into everything. Like, it. I just want to get the negative stuff out of the way so I can keep talking about positives. You gotta do the compliment sandwich. Compliment, a little bit of shit, then compliment. The whole fact that the Maz Kanata having the lightsaber and then establishing like a good story for another time, and then we've never gotten that
we
time.
Never find out.
It's just like, why did we do that? Having to treat Luke's lightsaber like an Excalibur type of thing, when lightsabers have never been treated that way. Like, I get why they're doing it in terms of like this whole original trilogy nostalgia, but in terms of like the greater storytelling of the film, I think it just holds it back, because like you're always tied to that legacy, and like you have to always go back.
Especially considering that the green one's the one that he actually made for himself.
And like
So
it's
that
he loses it in episode 5, and it's not a big deal. He just makes a new one,
yeah,
Anakin, how many lightsabers is it implied that he
yeah,
has lost over the time by Obi-Wan saying like, this weapon is your life, try not to lose it this time, and stuff like that. So not to say that we
yeah,
can't have that as a thing that's found and it sets up the story, but it also
yeah.
creates like a crutch for the rest of the films in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
But ending the film with Rey just finding Luke, and then the movie ends on a literal cliff, so it's a literal cliffhanger there.
Yeah.
It forced the Last Jedi to start the way it did. It's the first Star Wars movie that didn't start with a time jump, and it just starts straight away. So it's kind of like forces everyone's hand.
Right. But
And
then, and I know we've had that argument before, but watching it this time again, I feel like you could have still done the time jump. Like it still was a choice to start The Last Jedi there, because you could have started somewhere else and don't find out what it is until some way halfway through the film, and then do like a flashback of how the relationship with Rey and Luke started. Like you could have found a way to do it differently.
I mean,
So
I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? But it's one of those
yeah,
things where it's just like, I understand why Ryan did it, because he's like, well, what happened, right? You kind of
yeah,
like
and I
need to
get
know.
that, but we can't completely blame JJ for that one, though.
I will. He could have
You
done. He
will.
could have
I know
ended.
you will.
Could have done it different, right? But what else? What else? What's the? Oh, and then the big thing that I have to say that I think it's a big negative in terms of this film, and then I'll shift back into the positives, which I promise are a lot more. It's destroying the New Republic, and
Oh
just
yeah,
making the First Order like making the First Order a quasi empire, instead of just like, hey man,
yeah,
they already did it in the expanded
yeah.
universe. Just call it the remnants of the empire, or like have it be something that's a little more direct to it, so it's not just feels recycled. And then New Republic, like we didn't even get a chance to watch it and see like how it worked or didn't work, so that we actually feel something when it's destroyed. But I think starting establishing the movie by just setting everything back to the starting point with like analog proxies of the same things from episode
Yeah.
4. I'm just like, I mean, I'm not saying don't destroy Hostian Prime. I'm saying like, hey, but maybe now there's remnants of the New Republic that are also kind of fighting with the Resistance, and there's like cells that don't agree, so it's a little more complex, and we still get to see the political structure. But I mean, I guess Disney was just like, well, people didn't like the politics in the prequels, so let's just remove all the politics from this one, which I think hurt
Which was
the
a
movie in the
terrible
long run.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that one of the things that I do like a lot about the prequels is the politics. So the fact that we get now to the sequel trilogies after all this fighting has happened, after all these restructuring, after you see how the systems fail, and then what they suddenly decide to go back to a Senate that you knew already doesn't work. Like, couldn't they figure out a different form of government that? Because they knew the pitfalls, they knew why it failed, and then they did the same thing over again. And then not only that, but the entire New Republic is like these 5 planets, like one next to each other. Like it didn't spread out in case there was a threat. Oh, we take you out in
the whole
one
Navy
shot.
was in one planet. Yeah, it's just like, what are we doing?
It's like, what? I mean, it's like they learned nothing from everything that came before, which to me it's honestly a giant plot hole, because you just don't touch upon that at all. And then you don't touch upon the fact that Leia, who was into politics, was so kind of disgusted with what's happening that she decided to become a general. Like, screw politics, I'm gonna go into the military. Like, how did that happen? How did she actually decide to do that? So there was a lot of explaining that they should have done.
And before the nerds go off in the comments saying like, actually, they explain it in Bloodline, a Star Wars not. It's just like, we get it.
I know, but
there's
not
books that
everybody's
explain
gonna read them.
Like you can't, you can't explain a book to do the heavy lifting for a film that because like you were about to say, like most people don't read the books. So for like the main films that most people, that's what they watch, you shouldn't have to rely on a book. You should just, it should be in the film.
Yep.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
But
and
oh yeah, keep going. Sorry, I was gonna shift to the positives, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd have one more negative and then switch to the positive. And the other thing was the Starkiller base.
No, Yeah.
Because the Death Star was like decades in the making. You know, they've been planning to build it since the prequels. We know everything that goes into how difficult it was to build it, how Din Djarin, you know, has to go find the secret exhaust to destroy it because her father on purpose like was a spy within that had to secretly build a flaw into it. And
Jyn Erso,
so
not Din Djarin. There we go. I
oh
was just like, wait,
sorry, oh
who?
my god.
Similar names. Now that you say, I'm just like, they are
I
kind of
have
close.
been working way too hard this year. I need a break. I
feel that. I feel
apologize.
that. No,
Star
you're
Wars
good.
friends.
I was just like, wait, Din, what? How was he connected? No, but
Yeah.
there, we got there. We got there.
Yep. Yeah, we got there. We got there. Rogue One. Sorry, people. So there's been like all this, everything that goes into what happens to the Death Star and how we actually get to destroy it. And then in one film, suddenly we have a planet that is five times bigger
a death planet, yeah.
which is 5 times larger or however much larger than the Death Star, that somehow they figured out the technology for it to literally absorb a sun.
Which I think is
you
dumb.
explain this. It is. It's
dumb.
insane.
It's
and then
dumb.
you explain it away how it works in like 2 sentences. And then we find its weakness immediately. And we can like disable it immediately. And you're done with this whole new Death Star in one film after everything that happens before. So I don't think I noticed how egregious it was the first time I saw it. But watching it this time, I was like, damn, there was so much that went into the Death Star. And then you're kind of minimalizing that by just suddenly having this giant extra super weapon that can take out the entire Republic because it doesn't just shoot one beam; it can separate beams.
Like how do you
and shoot it?
Like how does? I mean, I'm not a scientist, but Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
I will say that as much as I don't like Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens, I have liked how they've recontextualized it in other Star Wars media, because in The Force Awakens, it's just Starkiller Base, whatever, you know, it's the Death Planet instead of the Death Star. But you know, in Jedi Fallen Order, when you go to Ilum, the planet that the Jedi Padawans, younglings, I don't remember which stage of their career they go into here, but where they go to get their crystals from to power their lightsabers. This is a kind of a sacred planet, right, for the Jedi, because that's where the Kyber crystal is. In Fallen Order, we see that the Empire has started like mining the planet, and you kind of see like a trench around it when Cal Kestis is going into it, which kind of suspiciously looks like the trench from Starkiller Base. And to make a long story short, it's actually revealed that Starkiller Base used to be Ilum. So it's one of those things where like conceptually it's like, okay, that's kind of cool that the Empire started strip mining a planet that was sacred for the Jedi, and then the First Order takes that and, you know, corrupts a planet that was supposed to mean this symbol of purity, right, in the Kyber crystal for defense and Jedi's lightsabers, to make it, instead of a weapon of defense for the Jedi, a weapon of mass destruction for the First Order, and corrupting, you know, that image of the planet. I'm just like, okay, that's cool, but it would have been cooler if I didn't have to, you know, go through all this other media to then get to that. You know,
that's what I was just gonna say. That's actually really cool and something that I didn't know, because I didn't.
You should play the game. There's probably some good Christmas specials for Fallen Order.
I need to play. I need to play more Star Wars. I need to play more video games. Period. I haven't really played anything.
Fallen Order, oof, that game, excellent. And Survivor, obviously, also a great follow up. So yeah, that's it. That's it. You know, it's a sin of the Lego sequel, right? Where you have to, and Star Wars: The Force Awakens in a lot of ways, it's probably like the best example of the modern Lego sequel, and I think kind of kickstarted what that looked like, because then like everyone and their mother started making Lego sequels in the vein of The Force Awakens. So, you know, it did something right. It was the highest grossing film of the year, and it's one of the highest grossing films in history. So it did something right, and it did a lot of things right. And one of the things that I especially think that it did right, that I think it's kind of beautiful in its storytelling and how it's filmed is character introductions. I think that The Force Awakens is the best film in the Star Wars saga in establishing all of their main players and all of their characters, especially with Rey. You know, because the opening scene of
Yeah.
the movie is Poe, and you see that he's in the mission to get the map so he can get it to Leia, and he's captured. And then we see Finn and the, his shock and disgust at everything that's around him that the First Order is doing, and seeing him reckoning with that so he can decide to escape with Poe. That sequence is spectacular and kind of
It
sets
is.
up where both characters are and what their journeys are going to be. But Rey's introduction, I think, is one of the most beautiful introductions of a character in any of the Star Wars movies. It's just a silent film, right? And it's
Yeah.
accompanied by John Williams' beautiful
Fantastic
score
score.
for, I mean, Rey's theme, again, one of the best themes in all of Star Wars. And that music is just so beautiful to encapsulate like Rey's innocence and hope in
Yeah.
this planet, that even though it's another Tatooine, it's still, great how they're establishing that she's there. She's been there a long time. She's struggling. She doesn't want to be there. Like that scene when she's cleaning the scraps and then she sees
Yeah.
the older woman in front of her.
Like, do I
in
have to
space.
be this
Yeah.
still at that age? Yeah. I
Yeah.
hadn't noticed that
And then
look in her
seeing the
face, I don't
ship
think.
leave. Woo. So good.
Well, to me, even from the beginning, like when you see her, in the carcass of this Star Destroyer, that I think it's the first time you really get to feel the sense of how large they really are, because we usually see them, alive and with a bunch of people working inside them. And then that first scene when you see her leaving from the exhaust port and you combine like her size with how ginormous that is, and then she takes off the mask, and that's the first shot you see of her face. It's so good.
And again, it's without any dialogue. I think that's the best part of it. And then she has her save the cat moment when BB-8 arrives and he's with Tito, and Tito's trying to take him, and she reluctantly lets him stay.
Yeah, come
in her
follow me.
house.
It's fine.
So good, so good. I mean, and obviously with Poe and Poe and Finn's introduction, we also have Kylo Ren's introduction. So yeah, it establishes like all four of them in a way that I think was extremely efficient, extremely well done. It makes you like all these characters so much, and the chemistry between everybody was just excellent. So I think that's one thing that will always sit very well with me in terms of like how good The Force Awakens is. It's just like it gave us extremely likable characters that we want to root for immediately and set them up in almost a flawless way. It's like we know exactly what they want, we know where they are, we know where they want to go, and we just feel compelled to follow their journeys. So like I can't fault a movie that does that so beautifully, and just brings all of them together in such really great ways. Poe reconnecting with them when they're doing the attack on Takodana and the X-wings, and then Poe's just Finn's just like seeing Poe be a badass shooting all the TIE fighters and being like, oh, they're reconnected, even though they don't know that they're together. And then Finn and Rey reconnecting on Starkiller Base, and so good. And there is also one character introduction that was handled well, I guess a twofold character introduction, because there's a lot of legacy characters as we've talked about, because it's not just it's a sequel for the original trilogy, so there's returning characters. It's not just new characters, and there's one character that I think they did a really good job at reintroducing, and that is the Millennium Falcon.
Oh yeah,
we never see it. They're trying to escape, and all of a sudden it's like the junk will do. And it pans, and it's just, bam, there it is, the ship we've been waiting to see.
No, it was even worse. It's like, no, it's this one. Wait, but what about that one? That was just garbage. And then the other one gets destroyed, and we pan out. And then we get the theme going, and there it is, the Millennium Falcon. Amazing. And the Millennium Falcon looks amazing throughout the entirety of this film.
Yeah, like, they shot it beautifully. Like that whole scene that's from the teaser trailer, when like it goes like upside down, and the camera just like follows
and it shoots. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It still hits. You still clap when that moment happens. But even before that, like right when Rey goes right into the carcass of the Star Destroyer, and it looks amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
all of it, and Finn is so confused, and I love that they kept the original kind of animation of the gunner ship, and all the sounds, and it was so much of it was great. I mean, the TIE fighters also. The TIE fighters looked so good, and I have always loved the sound of TIE fighters, and I love that they've kind of kept that original kind of elephant sound that they used.
Don't hit me on the design stuff because I'll go shift back into
Negatives.
negative territory, and I don't want to do that because we're in positive. So yeah, I'm gonna just agree on that one. TIE fighters looked good, and just move on.
Just generalize. Okay.
Yes, I'll talk. Maybe I'll do another episode about the design of Star Wars, but. From the Millennium Falcon is a character in of itself, and its introduction excellent because we get to see it in action again after 30 years. 30 years since since 87. Yeah, it's been that long. But then that character brings about another character because you can't bring back the Millennium Falcon without bringing its captain, and it was the scene from the trailer. Even though they put it in the trailer, and it still gives you chills in the film. It still gives you chills. They're hiding, and then that door opens, and Han and Chewie just run in, and Chewie, we're home. Talk to me about it. Like, how was it to see Harrison Ford back in the in the blue pants and the leather jacket?
Yeah. So I was really excited that they announced that Han Solo was coming back because notoriously Harrison Ford had said he was never playing Han Solo like ever again. And I was a little worried about how he was gonna be in it since it was a character that he was like, I'm done with it. I don't ever really want to do him again. And I remember watching that scene from the trailer and thinking, oh, they kind of, okay, it's fine. But then when you actually see it after you get to like reacquaint yourself with the Millennium Falcon and how awesome it is, and it gave me chills. But actually more than that, and I noticed it this time more than I've ever noticed before, is when he walks into the cockpit.
Yeah.
And you can see like genuine joy on his face and nostalgia to like kind of be there. And it felt real. Like it was just more than actual Han Solo. It was Harrison Ford being back in the cockpit, all these many years later. So that scene like was really fantastic for me when we watched it. And the fact, I think it was really smart that you got Chewie to get hurt so he wasn't the co-pilot again. We're like integrating Rey into the story, and the fact that he was like really reticent to have her around, and the fact that she's kind of responding really well to why the Falcon isn't working correctly, and him being like, okay, I can do this. I like you. You're kind of awesome. You respect the Falcon. I'll take you along for the ride.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There were a lot of really, really great scenes, and yeah, I thought it was really special. How did you feel about the reintroduction of Han Solo?
I mean, who doesn't like Harrison Ford?
Indiana Jones, baby.
Indiana Jones, Blade Runner, Han Solo, the President of the United States, twice now, I guess, if you count Brave New World. Bad movie. But, Harrison Ford is just a national treasure. Just freeze him in carbonite. We need to preserve him forever. But, seeing him, but like you said, he didn't particularly want to return to this role. Yeah. So having him return to it, the back of my mind, I'm like, ooh, I know what's gonna happen.
What it's gonna be.
I know what's gonna happen. We'll get to that later, but yeah, like
I think, and we knew it was coming, and
we knew it was coming, and it still hurt, and it still hurts,
and it still hurts
every time,
and it still hurts,
but
every time.
For on the whole, I think like he was great in the movie, but I think that there were things about his portrayal in the film that in a rewatch especially that I'm just like, okay, like what's going on here? Like where they're trying to make him too badass and like, oh, this is my favorite character from when I was a kid, let me make him do some really cool things. It's like the shooting without looking, or shooting like Chewie's bowcaster. It's like, why the hell are you doing this? Like what's going on here? Like, which are nitpicks, I know, but he has these really tender moments too, where it's just, especially with Rey and the scene in particular that like really I was just like, man, that was a really well written and well acted scene. Is when he's offering her the job,
The job.
and
Oh
then
yeah.
he catches himself being nice, and then he's like, I wouldn't be nice to you, and it doesn't pay well.
Pay much. Yep.
And she's just like
And she's
super
so happy
flattered.
about it anyway. Even after he says like, I will pay much and everything, and she's like so excited about it anyway.
Yeah. So excellent, excellent. I think that the shortcomings of Han really are with Leia in a lot of ways. I feel like their scenes are a little undercooked, because we see them in a. I mean, obviously we know that they've been separated for a long time, but if you're gonna bring back these two characters that are, one of the most important characters in the history of cinema, and we know that the last time we saw them, they're, a couple in love, and we know that they're the father and son of Ben Solo. I don't know. I feel like their scenes need a little bit more warmth, even if it was.
I feel like that too.
If it was, they're still kind of reconnecting after being separated for a while, but I feel like they needed longer, more intimate scenes. Kind of like
I agree.
Kind of like Luke's scene with Leia in The Last Jedi. Even though that scene was extremely short, it had all the warmth.
It was so powerful.
The warmth and it was power of their relationship. And it's just like, oh, I changed my hair. Oh, like I changed my hair. Like that. Like small things. Like
same jacket. Oh.
Yeah, like that kind of shows you like the power of writing. Like how one scene may be written.
It's almost
might seem
similar,
great, and then another one it might seem lame, and then in terms of the performance, one hits and one doesn't. And like I that's one of those things that I wish that there had been better, not performance, because Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford are incredible performers, but like better scenes for them to be a little more warm with each other, instead of being like, oh, hi, I saw you, now let's go now let's separate again so that you can go to the Death Star and save the day again.
Yeah, no, but it was also, I hadn't noticed. It's another Chewie moment that I hadn't really noticed. That first moment where we see Leia again, that, Han is being all awkward and doesn't really know what to do. And then Chewie goes for the hug. Yeah. Straight, no hesitation, goes for the hug. I'm so happy
Wookiees.
To see you.
Classic Wookiee.
I know, and I was like, you see, look, follow your co-pilot. Just accept the fact that you missed your wife, Yeah. So there were moments where it was like almost there, when you kind of see them fighting back and forth, and it's like, this is why life with you was so difficult, but doesn't matter. I always loved you, and all these things. Like, it was like almost there, but it needed like a little extra push for you to feel like, this is my Han and Leia.
I mean, which is like a movie that's trying to do as much as The Force Awakens did. I get how difficult it is, because it's trying.
Yeah, because it was so much. Oh,
not just tying back to the original trilogy. It has to restart the Disney era of Star Wars. I mean, or start the Disney era of Star Wars. Yeah. Restart Star Wars. Be one of the most highest grossing films of all time. Create interest in Star. Like, it had to wear so many hats that the movie is
create new characters.
It's a miracle that the movie worked the way it did and was successful in all the ways that it was, not just financially. I just mean as a film itself.
Well, and it actually works. Now that you really think about everything that it had to accomplish, obviously it has its flaws. No film is going to be perfect, especially not a Star Wars film, especially in a sequel sense of everything that it is and everybody's expectations. So considering all of that heavy weight lifting that it had to go into it, I think it actually succeeded in many ways.
Yeah.
And it holds up. Like, I had fun watching it again.
Yeah. And
isn't that the most important?
And it has, I think it has a very compelling villain, Ben Solo's Kylo Ren, I think, is a great villain to continue the legacy of, and I'm saying legacy of Vader because that's a comic book that is coming out, that is currently out, about Kylo Ren, which is excellent. If you haven't read it, go read it. But I think Kylo Ren as a character succeed Vader. I think it's really good and really interesting, especially as a meta commentary of fandom and like how we're worshiping the past, and and sometimes you become a menace, perhaps even a fandom menace in your worship of of the past story of Star Wars, and how you have to revere the past but also force your own story. So which probably wasn't the intention, right, of Lawrence Kasdan and J.J. Abrams when they were like crafting the film. But now we as the viewers of the movie get to put our own interpretation, right, of like how the film talks to us. And I think that's one of the interesting things. The Kylo Ren is kind of like the toxic fanboy, toxic masculinity, someone who's it's kind of like the perfect villain of a millennial Star Wars, basically, or post millennial. I don't know. Were the prequels millennial? I don't know. I don't know what generation technically the sequel trilogy belongs to, but it is definitely a movie of its time and talking to the things that are happening in the context in which it was made. So I think Kylo Ren in that sense works a lot for me, even though I wouldn't have named him Ben Solo, because why does Han and Leia care about a guy they've only met one day? I know that they went back in Obi-Wan Kenobi and retconned it so that now Leia actually knew Obi-Wan. And I say, okay, that was years after. Here, when they made this movie, they just decided to call him Ben, so it's connected back to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
But just give him the name from the expanded universe. He should have been Jason, just call him that, and then have him stand on his own. And then Luke can have his own kid that died in childbirth or something called Ben, so that he can be even more tragic. But that's another nitpick. It's another nitpick. The character works. I think it's a great character. They shouldn't have killed him off, is what I'm saying. The hunt for Ben Solo. Get it in production.
Especially after you redeemed him. Oh my God. His character arc was so interesting. It was actually one that was really good throughout all three. And then at the end, you'd say, redemption, death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which it's one of those things where he actually achieved what his grandfather wanted, which is to bring the person he loved from the dead, and then you just kill him immediately. It's like, which again, one of those things where he should have
completely different way that his grandfather was doing it, because his grandfather is trying to doing it by possession and all these horrible traits, and Ben was able to do it through compassion and self-sacrifice. And that doesn't grant you
we can't
redemption,
have
full redemption. You're gonna end up dead anyway.
We can't show what atonement looks like. We just have to kill him.
It's insane. That still pisses me off.
That's the Legacy of Skywalker. That should be the name of the next one. Legacy of Skywalker.
Legacy of Skywalker.
Everyone's just like, oh wait, there's no Skywalkers left except Rey, Rise of Skywalker. It's fine. But anyway, we're going on a tangent for Rise of Skywalker here.
I know.
Let's bring it back. Force Awakens. We don't know what's going to happen.
Force Awakens. So anyway, I remember that some people were kind of complaining that Kylo was kind of like whiny and had tantrums and whatever. And in the back of my mind, I was like, do you not remember
all the Skywalker
Anakin
boys?
Skywalker and Luke Skywalker when he was young? Like, this is kind of a family trait.
Yeah.
Only the women are kind of badasses,
That's factually correct.
So it was really strange. And I remember, and then sorry, nerds, all of you that I love you that are into everything that I do not know, because I don't read and I wasn't into the extended universe and I haven't played a lot of the games, and I apologize. But I think it's the first time that I really realized that Kylo probably didn't really know Darth Vader's story growing up. Because I feel like nobody really told the story that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader. Only the very few people in the universe that knew that he was. Do you want me
to answer that canonically, or do you?
Please just answer that canonically for me.
Well, in Kylo's point of view, when he learns about Anakin Skywalker being Darth Vader, since he's already being kind of twisted by Snoke, he understands that the version of Darth Vader as Anakin Skywalker is the corrupted version, and that's him being wrong, basically, and that the correct path of Anakin was to be Darth Vader. So he actually worships that version, and he thinks that the corrupted version,
but probably because he didn't grow up knowing the story, and then Snoke's probably the one that told him, oh, you know what, the Skywalkers are crap.
Well, he's being corrupted in turn to,
Right. But I feel like it stems from the fact that his parents and his uncle didn't actually tell him the story when he was a kid, and then Snoke could use it against him.
Hey, man, if there's something I've learned now in 2025, seeing all the neo-Nazis and everything that's happening, it's just like, you can tell a story. and you can tell them
Nobody's gonna believe it.
that they're, these were the bad guys, and some people will be like, actually,
Actually, maybe not.
maybe not. So I'm just like, things like that, where in the past I would have been like, this is ridiculous. Now I'm just like, actually, maybe not.
People buy it. People buy the stories.
People believe whatever truth they want to, if it's convenient to their narrative and whatever point in their lives they are, I guess. So
no, but honestly, I think it just makes Kylo a little bit more interesting, because they were so afraid of the family history hurting him that they kind of separated themselves, Leia and Han, and were like, no, just like train with Luke and go into the Jedi ways instead of like staying together as a family.
Yeah.
So that's the disconnect of, I don't know why in The Last Jedi they didn't break with the old traditions of the Jedi and kind of tried to do something, which was a missed opportunity. Because I mean, Han and Leia realized that one of the reasons they lost him is because he would have been better with his parents, not necessarily with a Jedi training him,
But I think that's one of those good lines from The Force Awakens, though, that I like a lot, is that scene with Han and Leia, where Han is just like, how can I help him? Luke's a Jedi. And then Leia's just like,
you're his father.
Luke's a Jedi, you're his father. And he was like, damn, that was a good line. That was a good line. We need more of those. But yeah, as a whole, I think that it's interesting to see, now 10 years removed, some of the, I use backlash lightly because I don't think The Force Awakens has received any sort of backlash in the way that the Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker have gotten. But see some people kind of turn sour against it, considering how well received it was at the time. And now some people just being like, oh, that's not like a movie, it's just a remake of A New Hope. And I'm here 10 years removed, and I'm just like, you appreciate the flaws, but you also see the greatness of that. And I'm just like, hey, it holds up. And it was an exciting movie.
It holds up
when it came out in 2015, and it's also a great movie to just rewatch now in 2025. And I think it will continue to be a great movie to continue rewatching. And as new generations, kind of what happened with prequel kids now, continue watching it, I know that the love for this movie and the sequel trilogy as a whole will continue to grow. So I'm looking forward to 10 years from now being a Star Wars celebration and getting that 20th anniversary Force Awakens shirt, just like they've been doing for the prequel trilogy, and see like all the new gen. I don't know what's the new generation at that point going to be like, oh my God, this is I grew up watching this movie, and I was being like, oh my God, like how old are we? But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. The Force Awakens will be a lot of people's favorite Star Wars movie, and the sequel trilogy will be some people's favorite Star Wars trilogy. And I'm very happy that it started the way that it did, because it's actually a great movie. Not my favorite of the sequel trilogy.
That's Jedi.
But still, it's a top two. It's not number one, but it's top two for sure. And I think
the saga, I think.
Oh no. I wouldn't put it top two of all the saga. Empire is, Empire and Last Jedi are 1 and 2. So
that's what
Last Jedi trumps.
We can do the rankings. We can do the rankings again.
We can do the rankings
at some point.
I know we did that like in our first episode.
Yeah.
Back in, when was it? This is our 5th anniversary, so back in 2020. So it'd be interesting to re-listen to no, actually I'm not going to re-listen because I hate my voice.
So do I.
It'll be if someone else listens to it for us, they can extract our rankings. So we can
rankings.
Yeah, so we can see how they have.
And if we're not talking exclusively Skywalker Saga, Rogue One is up there too. So
yeah, I'll send you that link that we used back then to see if you rank.
Oh my God, that was years ago. Okay, but before we leave off, so the end of Han Solo. We kind of knew this was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Like even before when the trailer was happening, if Harrison came back, he probably came back with a caveat that I'm just doing this one, and
you
that's
have
it.
To
and
kill me. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had speculated about all the time, so we knew it was coming. But when it actually happened, how did that hit?
The minute that I see a giant bridge without any guardrails on it, Kylo Ren's in the middle of it, and then Han Solo steps on it, I'm just like, here we go. this is it. Like
Mhm.
it was,
Yep.
and the music just stops. Like
I
there's
know.
no music. It's just silent. You just hear the wind blowing and light right there. Like it was
Oh,
beautifully filmed. Like honestly, like
beautifully filmed.
the visual
Oh yeah.
storytelling of that scene, I think is pretty immaculate. But that scene, you know exactly what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
But you still, you know it's happening. You
It
expect it
still
to happening.
hurts.
But when it happens, is you feel Kylo Ren's lightsaber in your stomach at the same time that Han is feeling it, because it's just such a well
Oh
scripted
yeah.
scene. It's I don't think I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And then
Yeah.
Han's just like, oh, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he's
Not something kind. Will you help me? Whatever you need.
yeah,
Boom.
woo,
Thank you.
there we go. And then like the
And then he like
the
kind of
hand on the
touches.
face,
Oh
yeah,
yes.
like still forgiving him. It's just like you're my son. I still forgive you. I see the good in
Yeah.
you, and then just goes into, like many Star Wars characters, go into a bottomless pit, never to be seen again. Ugh. It hurt. It hurt, but
It hurt. It
but
still hurts. And like you were saying, like how it starts on, you could see the light on Kylo. So
and then
you
the
still
light
have
just
this whole,
shuts
oh,
off.
he's,
Yeah,
yeah. And then right as he's talking, like it goes completely dark and all you can see is lighting from the red lightsaber, which by the
hmm
way, it's still one of my favorite lightsabers. The fact that it's so like raw and the
yeah,
sound
yeah.
that it makes and everything. So yeah, there were some beautiful scenes, and like we were saying at the beginning, that scene in the forest, it wasn't what we thought it
Mhm.
would be, but it was another gorgeous scene. I remember watching it the first time and rewatching it. It holds up. I love how the snow steams
Yeah,
on the
yeah, you can hear
sabers.
it. Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, the sound design on the film is just
it's
beautiful, especially
insane.
in that scene. Because it goes throughout the
And
whole fight. You just hear like all the snow
the
crackling
sizzling.
and melting
Mhm.
on the lightsabers as they're fighting, and every time, especially when they're quiet, you just hear like all the snow always. And when they're putting the lightsabers in the snow, and
In the
it
snow,
just starts melting and
the
crackling.
steam,
Oof.
and it
Excellent
was
sound
great.
design, and
Yep.
so many trees were cut,
So
but it was beautiful.
in the making of.
Yeah, and ever since that movie, it feels like every other Star Wars project has to have trees being cut by lightsabers, and it looks great every single time. I was like, hell yeah! I'm like, I'm sorry for those
It's a
trees,
good, but it's a good
it's
trend to start.
it
Looks and
looks
sounds
cool.
amazing. It
Looks
does.
cool. It sounds amazing. It kind of creates like obstacles for them also as they're fighting. Excellent, and like that visual, like I think one of the most iconic shots of the movie, when like Ray finally kind of, after like they're in the castle and she's about to fall, and he's like, you need a teacher, and
Yeah.
she's about to lose the fight, but then she finds kind of like the will of the force to be able to fight
Hmm.
against him, and they're holding, and then like he raises her arm, and her blue
Yeah.
lightsaber is pointing up, and then she lowers his arm and his red lightsaber is pointing
It's the
down.
red lightsaber in the
So
box. Yep.
that visual, just like good pointing towards heaven and evil pointing towards hell, it's just like it's just an iconic shot that I think also just symbolizes like the struggle of those two
Light
characters
and dark.
in many
And
ways.
light and dark and both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in many ways kind of, for me, it's almost as iconic as the shot from Darth Vader, from Luke and Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, which is like the shot of them kind of blocking
Yeah.
their lightsabers that shows in all Star Wars posters. Basically, I feel like
Wait, isn't that one from Return?
it's from Empire. It's like when Luke goes up the steps and then they start fighting.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
I think that that Rey and Kylo shot is as iconic as that moment there. I haven't heard anyone else say it, but I said it here. It's taken me 10 years.
Then it's so cool, right? Because it's like the dark and the light fighting. And even though I do not necessarily agree with Rey being a Palpatine, but you have a Palpatine who's in the light, and you have a Skywalker who is, at this point, the Skywalkers
dark,
have been redeemed and he's going into the dark. So I really like that dichotomy there. I wish they would have started from the beginning with this and not let us know at the very end that she is a Palpatine and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, because it would have been a really cool story development that, you come from the dark, but you choose the light. You come from the light, you choose the dark, is a really great storyline. And it's why I think Kylo was such a great villain in this one, and then eventually an anti-hero, and then eventually a hero. But Snoke was a failure, because Snoke, I don't feel, is really intimidating
Yeah.
in the movie. As much as I love Andy Serkis, he didn't really feel like a villain. Like he was too CGI'd and too massive feeling, and you always felt like he was a placement for somebody else.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you were gonna make Palpatine the bad guy all along, you should have been setting it up from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I have no issues with that.
Yep.
Although, in retrospect, you can kind of make things fit a little bit. I remember watching, obviously on YouTube. I don't remember what channel. I remember watching a channel that was speculating that Rey was a Palpatine because of her fighting style in The Force Awakens, which was very reminiscent of Palpatine's fighting style in Revenge of the Sith, because it was a lot of like lunges. The
Yeah,
way
and
that
like high
Palpatine,
up kind of movements, and yeah.
yeah, which I'm sure was not intentional when they were
Mhm.
making that movie. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was, but I think
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's one of those things where like, okay, it wasn't intentional, but now we can make it fit in The Last Jedi when we're going to Snoke's throne room. Palpatine's theme from Return of the Jedi plays, which also I don't think was intentional to be like, this is Palpatine, because back then they didn't know that Palpatine was going to go back, but now it kind of works in
Yeah.
a kind of backwards way. So, I think that also with a lot of the media that's coming out, Legacy of Vader comics, The
Mhm.
Mandalorian. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more stories and
Mhm.
shows that will come out that will do for the sequel trilogy what the Clone
The Clone
Wars
Wars did for the
did for
prequels,
the
yeah.
prequels. Which
Mhm.
again, like we were saying at the beginning, we shouldn't have to have all
Rely on
this
the extra information to make
extra
work. Yeah.
books and media to make the film and trilogy work. But the films are done. Here we are, and we can only like hope that things
Mhm.
get a little more fleshed out so that our enjoyment of these things
Yeah.
increase. Because
Yeah.
I think we've been more than happy with this 10th anniversary insane rewatch of The Force Awakens, and we in 10 years we want to rewatch it and love it even more, because we'll be like, oh, that First Order show
Mhm.
that's on Disney
Yeah.
or Super Hulu, Netflix Plus, or whatever net streaming is going to be called.
Paramount,
But
the
in 10
HBO,
years, exactly.
Warner Brothers.
That
Yeah.
show was really dope, and I love that that love story from Snoke and Palpatine that we didn't. I'm making shit up, but it's gonna definitely improve how we see the show. I mean, the films, and yeah, a great movie to kickstart the era of Star Wars, and a movie that I will continue to enjoy. So it was great. It was great, and I'm
It was
very
great.
happy and thankful that it exists, because if it weren't for it, you and I would not be here talking about it. So
We would not. Mhm. The Force Awakens. So
there
I
has
think
been an
that is,
awakening. Yeah,
there has been an awakening. Have you felt
we haven't
it?
done
Great.
some, I would say.
It was great. It was actually great. I mean, it has its flaws, it has its positive. It's still a great movie. If you haven't watched it in a while, watch it again. Just enjoy it. They're all on Disney Plus. It's great fun. And I think for today we're done, right?
We're done, and we're almost done with the year. I think we only have
I know.
one final episode to go, which is just going to be our traditional holiday special. But in terms of just like the season, I think this is kind of it, because
This is close. This is close.
the one
Yeah.
that's left is kind of like a bonus episode, basically. But yeah, my, how 2025 has flown.
It's been a strange year. And in
Mhm.
some spaces it felt like really slow, and then it kind of like fast forwards, and now
Yeah.
it's almost done. So it's been craziness. So thank you so much, all of you out there, for listening to us. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about The Force Awakens, what our content has been like this year, what you want to hear from us, what you don't like to hear from us. All of it is appreciated, as long as it's with a positive attitude.
Yeah, constructive.
So constructive. You can't be negative, but constructive. So thank you for joining us as always. And until next time, may the force be with you.